All right. Let me share. All right, Mar Dreaming, welcome. If I got to see you this morning, thank you for coming back to this session. Hopefully that influenced your decision. But welcome to the Future of Email Marketing and Trends panel. Um, Again, hi, my name is Marcos Duran. I am a marketing manager over at Sir Content and also your host for today here at Mar Dreaming. Um, Again, depending on where you're joining us from, thank you. Feel free to throw in the chat if you are using a specific ESP or marketing automation platform. Go ahead and throw it in there and tell us, what team you're repping. Pardot, Eloqua, HubSpot. If you're using Litmus, email Sun Asset to render your emails, etc. Today, we are going to be hearing from three trailblazers who are here to share their experiences with the changes on the email marketing landscape. So this session, what we're going to really be hovering over is going to be things, shifts in the market share, privacy and regulation, design trends and changes in those. Of course, AI can have a margin this year without AI, and a couple of other things. Our goals for the whole event, including this session, is to help you define what the future of marketing looks like for you, right? Again, we'll share trends, insights, but at the end of the day, you're going to do some experimentation. You're going to do what's best for you. If you guys have any questions, please use the chat, and we'll try to stop throughout the presentation to make sure that we answer those. Or you can also connect with the panelists and myself on LinkedIn. So I'm throwing my LinkedIn link here in the chat. So please go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and launch a quick poll. Let's see. Oops, oh, there we go. Oh, I guess it vanished. That's a bummer. Okay, well, we don't have the poll for today. It's all good. So just go ahead and tell us your biggest obstacle when it comes to email marketing. Is it putting stuff together? Is it orchestrating across multiple teams? Are we having difficulties maybe using segmentation best practices? Are we not getting those opens that we're looking for? And while you guys do that, I'm going to go ahead and invite the rest of our panelists. Natalie's here with us to please join me on the stage. So we have Katy, we have Tyler, McCord, Hege, and then we have Natalie Jackson. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors, like I mentioned, where without them, this event wouldn't be possible. Stencil is actually somebody who is in the email marketing space. So feel free to check out their booth on their marketing resources. They have a couple of case studies and some helpful tools for you under that marketing resources tab. So again, we have our three fabulous panelists here. We have Katy, who's more on the front end development side of email marketing. We have Natalie Jackson, who is director of demand gen and obviously having to do a lot with email marketing from operations perspective. And then we have Tyler McCord, practice area manager in marketing automation for his organization, working with a lot of customers across different marketing automation platforms and ESPs to make sure that they have the best results that they can. So that's who we have here in the panel today. There we go. Flash. So we're going to go into our first theme for today, market changes. So Chris, who is our moderator for today here in the chat, is going to be sharing with you guys a link for the Litmus report that came out earlier this year, where we're going to be pulling some of the statistics off for today. So today we're going to be talking about just very high level email service providers 2023 market share. So this came out straight from the Litmus report, right, where they have a sample size of sending over 19 billion emails, right, over 2022. So that's quite a bit of a data set. And we're noticing these trends. Now, in their report, they split up marketing cloud engagement and marketing cloud account engagement, but together they're 35%. Marketing cloud engagement right now is about 27% based on, again, their sample size. But here's some cool numbers, right? So we're noticing obviously Salesforce kind of like dominating there, MailChimp shortly after that. Then we have HubSpot, Constant Contact, and Marketo towards the tail end of that, which is still pretty big, in terms of volume of users. But this is just from that Limits 2023 report. Let me go ahead and grab that link for everybody and post it so everybody has access to that report. But just looking off this, Natalie, Katy, Tyler, do you guys have any immediate surprises here or any comments on this chart?
I wouldn't say any surprises. I'd definitely be interested to actually see the Salesforce Marketing Cloud one broke out between Marketing Cloud and account engagement now, because I'm assuming that those have now been combined up into one number. Because, we all know Salesforce very well. We know kind of what this costs and all that. So for it to be at this high of a level kind of surprises me a little bit, just based on what I'm seeing kind of around different industries as far as costs and things like that. So it's just, yeah, I'd like to see that kind of more broken out, but that's probably in a different kind of report.
Gotcha. Thanks, Tyler. All right.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting just to think about like the sizes of email teams that you might be looking at here as well, right? Like you look at something like Marketo, it's going to take a ton of people and resources in order to execute on that. And so I always wonder like how many people companies are allocating to email. And I think like, and Tyler, you probably see this more than anybody, there's a big gamut of like companies that are all in on email and are like, yes, email is a viable channel that requires its own resources and experts. And then there's like also on the other end of the spectrum, a subset of companies that are like, like one person's probably fine and they'll figure it out, So I almost look at like the marketing cloud there at the bulk of it is like companies that are sort of in between those two. Like email is important. Yes, it requires at least a few people, but like maybe not a team of 20 or something like that.
100%. Yeah. And it also puts into question, like, are these all Litmus customers? Right. So versus like, is it truly like, I think the sample size came from like 750 like CMOs, C-level or VP managers. So I'm wondering if those are also the people that are able to afford, Litmus, like a full license versus maybe something that just comes out of the box with like Pardot or maybe another builder. But let's go ahead and move on. Thank you for those points, both of you. We're gonna go into this kind of like stat from the report. So we're seeing 30% of the respondents to this survey of this report that Litmus launched that their ESP is highly integrated with their MarTech, right? So we're talking about things like Pardot, again, HubSpot, Marketo, things like that. I'm going to ask you this question, Natalie, because you being in demand gen, as a business leader, what can you do to ensure that email is more integrated into your stack, but also your funnel?
Yeah, I think this is something I've been thinking a lot about. And it's interesting if you think about like the market share of ESPs, there are some on there that like just by their nature are not going to be very well integrated into your tech stack. Like MailChimp, for example, is just one that's super difficult for you to say, oh, yes, that's fully and well integrated into my tech stack, I think with those of us here using Marketing Cloud, obviously I'm Marketing Cloud account engagement, Pardot. Don't tell him I said that. That's like, that's one that by its nature is going to be tightly integrated to Salesforce, right? So then the question that I would ask as a business leader is, what else do you need in order to be successful with your sales and marketing enablement, in order to be successful with compliance, in order to make sure you're maximizing your investment in other technologies. I look at this as like what I like to do, and this is like, again, something I've been thinking a lot about, is like, do you as a marketer have a full picture of all of the data sources that are syncing to Salesforce? Not necessarily to Pardot, but like knowing that everything in Salesforce, unless you've got marketing data share set up, is syncing to Pardot. You know, I think you have a burden to know, like, what does that mean? You know, what are those data sources? Are they ones that should sync to Pardot? Are they ones that are emailable? Are they ones that, you know, have high value? And do all those data points connect? So I think that's definitely the value there, both from like mitigating risk, but as well as making sure you're taking full opportunity of your investment in all of your technologies, regardless of whether or not they're true marketing technologies.
Right. No, that's a great point. And I think where we see a lot of the frustrations on the consulting side, and Tyler, maybe you have something to say here. When we see some customers that are perhaps a little frustrated with their marketing automation platform, like with segmentation, things not working out, a lot of times is because things aren't really integrated and marketers are not well equipped to really use the data from their business to be able to do segmentation or personalization when it comes to email marketing. Do you have anything there that you would like to add?
Oh, I mean, yeah, for sure. Sorry, I don't know if you're directing that at me or at Tyler. Yeah, personalization gets hard if your data is disconnected. Tyler, I'm sure you've seen a lot of this in your role as well. So I won't suck up all the oxygen on that answer.
I mean, one thing that we find, that I find a lot when I go and work with clients and just overall throughout my career, when we really start to look at the integration of a whole MarTech tech stack, then one thing that seems to get overlooked is an actual data strategy. Where's that data coming from? How's that data going to be fed in? As a marketer, do I need access to all of that data? What can I, or what should I be looking at to use to market to my to market to my audience? And it all starts with that data strategy. And if you haven't, and if you're right now experiencing kind of, segmentation issues, data issues, and things like that, I would highly recommend going back and taking a look at your data strategy and see if that needs to be adopted and changed, because you might have set that up 7 years ago, and man, has the environment changed in 7 years.
Oh, yeah.
You might need to reinvent. You might need to just take a look at that again.
Well, and Tyler, I'm sure you see this too. Sometimes marketing's not always aware of all of the data sources getting synced to Salesforce, right? And so like you have a burden as an email marketer to ask the question of like, where is the data coming from? How is it getting categorized? Tell me a little bit more about what sort of relationship somebody from that data source actually has with our company. Because you need to know, as an email marketer, is that a source that has no pre-existing relationship with us by the time it syncs to your marketing automation platform? Or is it one that's like, oh, no, they have a relationship, like technically they're mailable. You've got to have like that full picture of what does that data point mean in order to know what you can or cannot do with it in your marketing automation platform.
Yep, exactly.
100%. And thank you for both of you for sharing that. I guess I must have been blind from all the candy that I consumed for Halloween, but we ended up finding the polls tab after all. We launched the poll. So again, what is the biggest obstacle when it comes that you're facing when it comes to email marketing? So we have strategizing over execution. I know a lot of us kind of get stuck in just like sending emails, and not really like creating the roadmap. Developing emails, Katy's going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. Effectively testing your emails, collecting ROI. Natalie, you talked about how some organizations are all into emails and some other ones always think about it as a secondary channel to maybe picking up the phone and calling people. And then I think something that anybody in marketing operations in general or marketing struggles with is orchestration, right? Like, and not even the tech, but just like making sure we're all aligned on messaging, making sure that like somebody didn't create like a one-sheeter that wasn't approved by marketing or whatever for sales, those types of things. But we're getting some fabulous responses here. And I think right now, collecting ROI, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and orchestrating between departments are winning for the biggest obstacles. Again, people can only choose one, so maybe there's multiple there. But thank y'all for coming in with that feedback. All right, we're gonna move on. And so this is a slightly different source, again from Litmus, but they're talking about the B2C email marketing client, email client market share, excuse me. So again, 19 billion emails are sent in this sample, kind of the top 3 email clients. So briefly, I guess, Katy, why don't you just briefly describe like what's an email client, right? Like what are some examples of them before we go on, just to level set? Oh, I think you're on mute. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on. No worry, Katy. So Apple, Gmail, and Outlook being the 3 main email clients here, and so this could potentially have some leeway into how we develop our emails. So we're gonna go ahead and move on. We're gonna talk about how we can determine which email clients to develop for, and should we stop developing for Outlook? That was obviously B2C, but that was a very small percentage. Katy, are you back with us?
I think I am. And so
Okay.
let me know in the chat if that was me with the feedback, because I muted myself and didn't know how to unmute myself.
Okay.
Yeah. So what an email, obviously what an email client is, how you're deploying your emails. So a lot of us use account engagement, marketing cloud, HubSpot, etc. So I think everyone here probably knows what that is. Should we? No, I don't think, how can we determine which email clients to develop for? I think we should develop for all of them. Or, excuse me, the email client that we're talking about specifically here is Outlook. I was thinking email service provider. I'm so sorry. Email client is Outlook, Google, or Gmail, etc. So yeah, no, I don't think Outlook is not going anywhere. We're talking about, I have not personally, as Sercante, we have not seen any slowdown in repairing emails that are, looking wonky in Outlook. I would say I get probably 3 or 4 a day of requests just to fix those. But I always say the top 3 that I know if I develop for an email, does it look good in all of my Outlook clients? Does it look good in Apple? Does it look good in Gmail? And I think if you hit those 3 main ones, then you should be pretty good when you run it through a Litmus or an email and acid.
Yeah, that's great. And we actually have a lot of emerging comments coming from the chat. One of them being, it's so hard because all your leadership checks their emails on Outlook, but your customer base is on Gmail, right? They're on their phones. So like, how do you balance that? But also, Jordan in the chat has a really good question. Their audience is actually majority of Outlook, right? Being probably B2B, Jordan. Hopefully I'm not adding words to your mouth, but any tips on how to be inclusive of this email client when developing? I think we're gonna talk about that in a second, particularly around dark mode. So Jordan, go ahead and hang tight with that question, but we'll come back to you.
So can we go back real quick to Marcos, just to the breakdown? Because I think there are a couple other things that are important here for email marketers to take into consideration. One, that I think really stands out to me is that percentage of Apple, and thinking about the percentage of Apple mail privacy that's in place. And just like Outlook, for example, is not going to calculate and open if you don't download images, right? But then on the other hand of the spectrum, Apple mail privacy is going to pre-open all images and record that as an open in order to protect the privacy of the person who has that enabled, which is to say that like if you're looking at 60 to 70% of your mailable database using either Apple or Outlook, like you cannot be reporting on email opens anymore. They're just not a viable metric. And I often say to my team, I'm like, if you want to know your email open rate, if that's your percentage, like just throw a dart at a number and be like, it's whatever. It's just not a reliable metric. The other one that I think is important for us to consider is that a lot of those mailboxes are changing how they handle spam complaints and how they handle inbox placement based off of engagement. And so like the days in which you can just sort of blindly send to unengaged prospects and like hope that you're going to be fine because your deliverability is great is, you know, something you should be keeping in mind. Is a lot of those have been changing their inbox placement strategies pretty aggressively in the last few months, such that like that's something you got to be paying attention to if you haven't been already.
100%. And again, Natalie, if you want to grab your LinkedIn URL and throw in the chat, but Natalie and I tend to post a lot about like changes on email marketing in general on LinkedIn, talking about some changes recently to Gmail and the way that they're handling things like canned spam, open rates, inbox placement into the different folders, those types of things. So definitely changing. Hannah, hopefully I'm not mispronouncing your name. Why are email opens not a reliable metric? Before we open that can of worms, I'm going to just very briefly say there's been a lot of changes in the way that opens are being detected. That is really not reliable anymore. And this has been happening quite a bit over the last like 2-3 years. App was one of the, I guess, biggest offenders with this, where essentially they just say that all your emails were open if they were received by somebody who has an Apple email. So that's not really the case. So Natalie's going to talk about this privacy and how this is affecting your numbers in a session later. So we're going to go ahead and just like stop there on that particular topic. She just dropped her LinkedIn, but not to say that you shouldn't look at open rates, right, Natalie? But it just shouldn't be your primary KPI to like measure the effectiveness of your emails or your email campaigns.
Yeah, we'll get into that a lot more this afternoon.
100%. So be sure to add that to your agenda. All right. So we talked about this design considerations just for the sake of time here. So we're going to go into dark mode now. So dark mode, what is it? For some applications, that is simply just a setting that you can toggle on to get better readability on the screen, right? So you can have better contrast. This is becoming more and more of a trend, not only for on iPhones and Androids for like apps, but also on email marketing. And so this is a quick again chart from the same report that's talking about when we're developing those emails, right? Are we taking into consideration that some people are going to have that setting on or toggled on for your emails, and it's going to change the way that email is going to be displayed? And from what we're seeing from a report that was launched this year with data from last year still, so not that far away, pretty recent, a third of email marketers and developers that are putting these emails together, that's not even a thought in their head. So how does that look or translate to me opening an email on my phone? Well, a couple of things. When you are building email, for example, maybe you add your logo to the top of the email, and all your company uses the same logo. It has the white background. No problem. You send it, you do a test. It looks great. But then somebody with dark mode comes about and they see it in dark mode, and the background of the canvas of your email goes black. But now you see your logo, big square on the top of your email, that is the color of the logo, but the background is white because the image that you use is white, right? And so now it just looks like it didn't fit, like maybe you guys didn't know how to prep that email right, things like that. But it has a lot of more indications than just a logo, right? I guess, Katy, let me loop you in here for this one, and then Tyler, if you have any insights from what you're seeing, what your customers do. But 40% of recipients that are getting these emails from this report are opening their email in dark mode. How do you react to that?
I think it's just as important as when the phones transition to opening your emails on your phone, and all of a sudden, all the marketers were hot and heavy to go responsive. I think it's just as important now with the dark mode. It's just that fast that we need to start coding for that. Internally, for our own company, we're like, okay, well, we can target a couple of different things. We can, like you said, the logo for one. We can alternate on a couple of devices what that logo might look like. But how does that look like? What does it look like for the ones that we can't target? So making sure that it may have a soft glow or an outline, or just having that white logo outline, with the box is perfectly fine. Just as long as you can, don't lose it in the darkness of the dark mode. So, just having those conversations up front with the designer for your company that is doing the branding, and just having those hard discussions, like, okay, this is what it's going to look like in Outlook, and it's going to, on certain versions of Outlook, and it's just going to invert the colors. Are those colors still going to be on brand, and how is that going to, is it still going to be legible? Are the fonts going to, bleed into the background? Those are the things that you just have to just plan up front. And I definitely need, make sure that you have all those discussions up front with your design team or your branding team. Right. It's definitely a hot topic. We get those all the time. Those requests.
And I'm just going to move over here because this is what we're talking about. But Tyler, I guess, do you have any resources off the top of your head that you would offer to somebody who, this is the first time that they're hearing about this? Maybe in their personal life they saw it, but they didn't think any better. Maybe they're like, oh, they just put a black background. Now they know that this is a setting. Where do we start, right? Like, where do we start to look for maybe examples? What are the tools that maybe you guys use at the agency to, to test for this? Or like, what recommendations can you give to the audience today?
Yeah. So the bottom line here is that dark mode is an accessibility feature, and accessibility has gained a lot of traction over the past just few years. We even now have an entire team dedicated to accessibility within our organization, and it's something that a lot of organizations aren't thinking about. But it's time for people to start thinking about this. One, because you can actually get into some financial trouble if you are not providing accessible websites and accessible communications for anybody who comes to your website. But two, it's just a lot of, like we saw there, 40% of, I'm one of them. I've always used dark mode on my device, no matter what. Now I've known that from my perspective, like, I know this email is not going to look great on there when I test it on my mobile device, but I know when I send it to so-and-so, they're using regular, they'll be fine. And dark mode's not even really thought of when you start to design your brand standards. You're like, yep, this is exactly what my stuff's going to look like on my nice, clean, off-white web page. Well, now dark mode's out here. Dark mode's for browsers, dark mode's for mobile devices, dark mode specific in applications if you want them. And it has to be thought of as an accessibility feature, and all companies should be moving towards being a more accessible environment for all.
100% on accessibility. So we had a couple of questions in the chat, just like what if my logo is black? Like, how is it going to look? Like, where do I start? Things like that. So I'm going to speak for myself, but I think one of the leaders in this is actually Litmus. Litmus has several reports and like case studies and like even a checklist that you can go and download to tackle dark mode. Now, in terms of like logos being a color or not being the other color or whatever, there's coding that your developer can do to essentially flip when it detects certain changes on those settings that we were talking about. I'm going to go ahead and just do 2 more bullets here, and then we're going to move on to the next question. But if you're curious of what your email looks like, if you are on an Android specifically, because that's what I have, When you open your email, normally it'll default to whatever your phone settings are. So either the background would be white or black. If you're interested in seeing the inverted, there's 3 little dots on the right side. And I see them in Gmail, so that's what I'm checking in. So Android in Gmail, and you can view it in light mode, and so then it flips it to white, which is what most people see. So that is just a very like low bar way of checking how your design will transfer. And then the other thing is, I saw a lot of account engagement, aka Pardot, in the chat when we first started. So you guys are close to my heart here. But if you are on, I believe, Plus, so that's the second out of 4 editions of Pardot or Leader, you have access to a partial license of Litmus. Litmus rendering in Pardot, right? And we're going to keep saying that, right, Natalie? You have the option to render your emails, again, previews of your emails that you build in account engagement or in Pardot. I think it's like 30 options, and I think at least 4 of those show some version of dark mode. Now, there's over like 3,000 different devices and combinations, according to Litmus, that you can render. You're not going to worry about 100% of them. You're going to worry about what's in your market share. If you don't know if people can open your emails or if they're opening their emails in Apple or Outlook or things like that, not a precise metric, but if you are on Plus additional Pardot, there is a report that's out of the box after you send an email that tells you who's opening your emails in terms of, I believe, email clients and versions of those. So if you're noticing 90% is Outlook, you need to make sure your content's, being set up for Outlook, or if it's like on mobile, right? So those are just some things that most of you probably already have at your disposal that you don't have to go and buy anything for, to just kind of check and get the lay of the land and then invest in resources. But if you are interested in maybe in a quick audit or somebody like that, Tyler, if you briefly come off mute and give us the name of your company. Answer Content, we help customers with dark mode. Katy's actually our lead developer when it comes to that. Tyler, if you want to drop your company name there too, they can also reach out to you.
Yeah, we're New Era Technologies. We cover everything, like a huge scope of things. But my practice in particular, we focus on Marketing Cloud and audits within Marketing Cloud and work within Marketing Cloud. That does include some account engagement stuff. And like I said, we have an entire team dedicated to accessibility and user experience just across the board.
Yeah, and this is also an excellent time to plug the Genius Bar. If you have any of those questions around email marketing, you can reach out to us, and we will make sure you get an expert on email marketing to help you out with any questions that you have afterwards. So thanks, Tyler, for that. All right, we're going to move into personalization. And so here with personalization, obviously everybody wants the best experiences possible, not only on your applications, right, but also online as you're reading stuff, including email. So 64% based on this 2023 State of Email Design report from Litmus says that email sent by companies leverage personalization using dynamic content. Dynamic content in this sense, regardless if you're joining us, if you're on Marketing Cloud engagement, account engagement, Pardot, Marketo, HubSpot, they all kind of have some features that are similar. They just maybe handle them a little bit different. For the term dynamic content here, we're going to talk about anything that you can personalize upon email send. So if we're talking about account engagement, we're talking about HTML, so tokens, and we're talking about the actual concept of dynamic content where you can build blocks and you can share them. Tyler, I'd be interested to hear in y'all's organization, what are some interesting ways that you are seeing dynamic content being used by customers or just in the market in general from your personal experience?
Yeah, so we're helping a few clients right now. One client comes to mind. We're helping them create a dynamic email based upon their customer research on their website as far as automobiles go. And we've working with this customer. We've also not only like if you go to their website and you kind of research some of their cars, you sign up to receive like more information later on. What you're actually going to be receiving from them is an email with cars within a 50-mile radius of you based on your searches. And that's all strictly dynamic. So this changes from email to email, person to person. It can even change from just you were looking at this specific car and your neighbor was looking at another one. You will get 2 different complete emails. And it's all just driven by the personalization data that we'll pull in from that website into Marketing Cloud. And pushing it out as it needs to be ingested. That's one way I've seen the dynamic content being used. That's pretty advanced from my perspective, especially with the kind of geolocation on it. And everyone's using personalization, and really the conversations that are having today is what is personalization now. 5 years ago was making sure somebody's first name was in there. That was enough. That was personalization. Well, now as a customer, like if I'm on your website and I've created an account for you, like you know who I am, I expect you to know who I am. I don't expect to get emails from you about stuff I've never even looked at on your site before. I don't expect to get communications from you or even ads from you about nothing that I'm interested in. I expect you to say, hey, I know Tyler. Tyler's interested in product A. I'm going to show him everything associated with product A. Don't send him product B. He doesn't care. He's never looked at it. He only needs to know about product A. And that's where we are today with this personalization and the use of dynamic content. Because in your email, in your messages, you should be working to create just one message with these different components in it. There's no reason, there are some reasons you have to create the different segments and stuff like that to create different emails based on your technology and all that. But if it's possible, it should be one email with these dynamic content blocks in there that are just driving the actual engaged content that your audience wants to see.
And to follow up on that, back to data, Tyler, like if your data house is not in order, you are going to have a very hard time personalizing beyond the first name.
Yes.
So going back to business reasons to understand your data landscape, like that is a big one right there.
Yeah. I say in today's world, you can't just assume that your data is perfect. I've seen report after report of where companies are like, oh, I have about a 10% confidence that my data is accurate. And I'd say, yeah, that's probably about right. Because, multiple data sources, you have, Scott from sales, he's been running his spreadsheet for 20 years now. That's what he does. But so it's not in the CRM, but he needs you to communicate to his clients. And it goes right back to that data strategy and data policy within your organization. And
also, like even bringing it closer to home, there have been so many layoffs, so many across our ecosystem, and even outside of tech. But we've seen Salesforce, we've seen some of the big consultancies, right? So we've seen so many changes where like it's not even about like, oh, we collected data, or maybe it's not even synchronized together, but even like the data that we just collected a month ago is probably not up to date anymore because somebody moved companies or they got laid off, right? So with that being said, let's move over into privacy, which I know, Natalie, you're probably like jumping in your seat about. But with all the changes in the way that email clients are recording opens, right? We talked a little bit about this earlier. What would you recommend people do to report on their campaign performance, right? Is there other KPIs? What are some tips to make sure that they're getting what they actually need from those reports?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it really boils down to, are you doing a good job before you send the email of understanding what success looks like, right? And I think historically email marketers have got kind of locked into success is measured by clicks and opens, but like it never really has been. That never is the way that we should be reporting out on email success, right? And there are lots of different reasons that you might be sending an email. And I hope for many of you, it's not because sales told you to. There's got to be like, what is the desired outcome? I'm going to send this email to Tyler. What do I want Tyler to do with it? Do I want him to go engage with some information on my site? Do I want him to fill out a form? Do I want him to subscribe to something? Do I want him to take some other action that, is external out there? In B2B, it's a lot trickier. Like so CBiz offers everything from accounting, tax, benefits, insurance. We have so many different business services. Like, it would be great if people would be like, I'd like to add, an audit to my cart and then check out and like purchase audit online. But like, that's not really a reality, right? So like, I can't measure revenue as directly as, say, a B2C marketer can. But what I can do is say, oh, this email was intended to educate, or this email was intended to help them subscribe. And I can measure the outcome of my action instead of measuring like, what did they do with this single point of failure, right? I mean, email, again, just the sole purpose of it is not to just like measure a click. Like, a click doesn't mean anything, and it's never meant anything. The click is only to tell you, did they go to the place that you sent them to take the desired action that you wanted?
100%. And again, we'll hear more from Natalie a little bit later today on more on privacy and some of these changes that we keep hearing throughout here. We're going to go into one of my personal favorite like slides here, Gen AI usage in email marketing. We had some questions about accessibility. I'm dropping in a quick link to a webinar that we recorded. We actually have somebody on the team who is legally blind. So when I heard her story, very impactful. And so I'm having to relook at the way that we're doing stuff at Circonte as well. And you'll see a glimpse of what that branding will look like pretty soon here. So keep an eye on that. But we have a quick poll for everybody. So essentially, are you using AI technology across your email creation process or even in your development? So we're going to go ahead and open that up. Things like ChatGPT, DALL-E, etc. And here we have our AI usage in email based on that report that we keep referencing. So 58% of marketers are not using AI in any capacity. No subject lines, no copywriting, no image creation, definitely no optimization of send times. So Tyler, you again being in the kind of same ballpark where I am at, what are some reasons that you see or you're hearing from your customers that why are they not embracing these technologies, and like what are some things that you're telling them to hopefully change their minds?
Yeah. Okay. So we're kind of running out of time, so I'm gonna have to shorten this up a little bit. Okay. So the one reason I'm seeing why people aren't embracing AI is because, well, we don't know AI. AI is brand new into this world. It's been around for a while, but it's more brand new on the public consumption side of things. So there are a lot of people who have never looked into this, never thought about looking into this, and now all of a sudden they're being told, hey, we're going to start using AI. They don't know what this is. They don't know how to do it. And they're afraid of it. They're afraid that, hey, if I start using this AI to write content, I'm going to be out of a job. And that's the wrong way to look at this. And that's where we, as our market leaders, we need to set these standards, these moral obligations that we have with this to be like, AI is a tool. It's not here to replace people. It is here to enhance your job and make you do your job faster and better. And it's like, just think about how much time you could save and what else you could focus on if you didn't have to sit there and churn out content for the next 10 emails in your upcoming campaign. If you could turn to AI and say that, you could say, rather than focusing on writing the content, I'm not going to really focus on the strategy and the data I need to make sure this campaign is successful. And that's how people should approach AI. And that's just what is not happening because it's still so new.
Right. 100%. Thanks, Tyler, for sharing that. And thanks to all of our panelists. We're going to go ahead and quickly close this poll up. So we just have a couple of predictions that we went ahead and put together for everybody. So again, Natalie's going to be talking about data privacy, but it's going to get more complex. We're seeing even within the United States, each state kind of taking their own slightly different stance and flavor of that. We're seeing countries like Japan, Brazil, obviously GDPR in Europe being embraced in terms of this data privacy. Customer expectations will continue to grow when it comes to personalization, making sure that people know who you are, and then AI usage will also increase. We're going to go ahead and launch a quick survey that we would love all of you to take. And then we just want to make sure we bring up this session. So Natalie's session, We're going to have a session in Marketing Cloud Journeys. And then if you are using the Lightning Builder in account engagement, there'll be a session later this week on that as well. With that, we want to thank you. We're about to log off. Make sure you fill out that survey. And thanks again for attending. All right. Awesome.